Like I can normalize going and meeting up in bars. I can normalize like whatever kind of behavior. So I'm not allowing myself to do that, if that makes sense.
So kind of an all or nothing, like if you give a mouse a cookie type situation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the One World Your Story podcast. It's me, Jamie, your host, and this is the first episode of 2021, Curtis. I just realized. So I'm joined by a person this evening that I'm realizing I don't even know your full name.
Perfect.
We know each other through yoga. We have been taking virtual yoga classes live for almost a year together now. It's been like 9 months and like 3 days a week, which is really weird to say out loud.
Wow.
Right? Isn't that crazy?
That blows my mind. But what is time anymore?
Right? Not if nothing but an illusion. So, okay. That being said, the only way I can introduce you, usually I do a little bit more of an intro. This is Curtis. He practices yoga and is in Denver, Colorado, I believe, although there are people all over the place in that class.
Yeah, I'm actually in Boulder at the moment.
Okay, you're in Boulder.
So Denver adjacent.
Okay, close to Denver, for those not in Colorado. And you are an actor by profession, but I have no idea what you do now, and I don't really know anything else about you. So I would love, tell me about you. So you're in Boulder, but for the purpose of the Corona Diaries, who do you live with? How old are you? And what do you do?
Okay, so this kind of I'm Curtis Johns. I am an actor who has been based in Denver for the past 8 years. Shit, again, time. And right now I am currently in Boulder, living at my mother's house, which is lovely and embarrassing all at once. The virus hit at like the perfect moment where I was in between either staying here or moving, and I didn't really have anything lined up, and so here I am, which is fun. I am 36. I'm 36 still. Once you get past, I think 35, I don't, at least for me, I was like, I couldn't keep track anymore. So, have been a professional actor I've been acting for over 25 years, professionally and amateur. I started when I was 9, and been doing mostly theater and little film and TV and commercials here in Denver. Before that, I was in LA.
Okay, cool. So thank you for sharing all of that and already getting a little vulnerable with us. Okay, so you are currently in Boulder living at your mom's house. Is it just you and your mom there?
Yeah, she used to run an Airbnb out of part of the house. And when the pandemic started in March, like when the lockdown started, she completely stopped that. And so I took over the Airbnb portion of her residence.
Okay, so does it almost feel like your own apartment within the house then?
Yes. Yeah. No, it's 2 completely separate kitchens, separate living environments, completely separate, but also it's still, your mom's still there.
Yeah, but
I love it.
Okay, sure, but like one might be embarrassed and one might think actually that's smart. You're probably saving money, like kind of nice to be with your mom during these times sometimes. Like what a blessing, actually. You would never have this time otherwise. So there's some good things.
Oh, absolutely.
So, okay, and you're 36, and you have been an actor for 20-ish, 25
Mhm.
years, on and off, various avenues, mainly theater. And now what? What do you do these days?
Well, what I do these days,
This is assuming you're not actually,
yeah,
forget that question. Let's back up.
well, yeah, these days, like commercial work is still happening. Um, Film and TV are still happening, uh, but it's way less. It's way less, and it's kind of the Wild West out there a little bit. You don't quite know what precautions who's taking. They tell you, but you don't really know until you get on set. Um,
Okay, okay. So
yeah,
I want to dig into this, but we
yeah,
have to back up a lot,
okay.
first of all.
All right,
Okay.
back it up.
So today is, God, it's like there's so much to talk about on just what's going on
Yeah.
today. And it's wild, Curtis, because I haven't done, not only have I this, are you the first one of this year? I just haven't done a specific Corona Diaries podcast or interview in a while. So there's just a lot to dig into. I can tell you're chomping at the bit to say something, but to direct this,
Lead on.
January 12th, 2021. When did you first hear about the coronavirus?
Oh, I heard about it. I feel like I heard about it in January ish, like whispers of something happening.
So exactly a year ago.
Yeah, exactly a year ago. Um, and then it started to ramp up through February and March, and
Do you remember the moment where you, for lack of a better phrase or words, started taking it seriously? Do you remember that moment?
I do absolutely. Um, my little brother texted me and was like, "This is going to be a big deal," and I had just gotten back from Los Angeles, and I work. Just a little backstory. I work also concert merch, so
Okay.
I do me. I work for a company that
Which
does
doesn't exist
does
right
not
now.
exist anymore, but it's relevant later on. But so working in concert merch, we work like the Pepsi Center and Fiddlers and all of the big venues in town. Okay. And so my little brother, he texts me and he's like, "This is gonna be a big deal," and I'm like, "No, it's not. Like, it's not. Look at the data. It's not. Um, my friends that are in the healthcare field are telling me that it's not going to be a big deal. Like, it's not a thing." My brother, who is one much smarter than me and also like keeps his eye on stock markets and things like that, was like, "It's going to be a big deal. It's going to be a pandemic, and I need you to change your lifestyle right now."
Okay, wait.
But
When was the date of this?
this is probably in late February.
Okay, and by the
Like,
way, late
yeah,
February, a lot of the world knew how serious this was. Your brother
yeah,
was, it's not like he was on to sniffing something that the whole world wasn't looking at the US being like, you're next, right? But
yeah.
here in the US, he was an outlier for sure.
This is after, of course, like the journalists were all evacuated from Wuhan and all of that, like all of
Of
like
course,
those
because by the end of
newsworthy.
February, Italy was
Yeah,
blowing up already, I
yeah.
think, or just
And
starting to.
I might be like a little. I think it was probably mid-February. Then it's right when Italy started
Okay.
to get crazy. Like right when we were like, "Oh, this isn't," and but still here.
There, it
We're
was starting to be like
mm,
50-50-ish, I think, at that time.
yeah.
Some people were like, "Oh, we're next," and other ones like, "No."
Yeah, no, no, it's good. And I was like in the no, it's good because I was like, but then right after that conversation, like, I was like, okay, what, what do I do? So I bought some hand sanitizer and, but we were still having like huge concerts here in Denver. And so my
Okay, I was
brother was
gonna ask, what did he mean when he said, "I need you to change your lifestyle immediately"?
like, like, like stop going out. And he also wanted me to stop going to work. That was his advice was like, you should probably stop going. And I I was like, okay, I will do half of what you say. Like I'll limit my social circle. I'll take you at your word that like this is gonna be bigger than I think it is, but I'm not gonna stop going to work. I'm not gonna so I limited my social life and continued to serve tens of thousands of people with t-shirts. And so
Until when? I mean, you can sit there with that face,
yeah.
you know, I think most people tuning into the podcast, I assume, are listening rather than looking at you. See this face, I'm like, ooh, feel weird about that. But how could you have known at the time? I mean, it was open, right? People were showing up. Why would you think it was weird that you were working there necessarily?
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Like I did that until I worked the last concert that was in Denver. Period.
When was that? And what was
That
the show?
that was Post Malone at the Pepsi Center on March. It was like March 12th. I
Oh
think it
my
was.
God, that's so weird to think. How many people? What's a sold out concert at the Pepsi Center?
I think it's. I think it's 14,000, but no, that can't be right. I it's a lot of folks. I get the Pepsi Center and I get like Mile High's capacities confused. I can't ever remember which is which, but it's a
It's
lot of people.
thousands. It's thousands.
Yeah. But at that point, like before that, we had worked Oprah. Like Oprah came to town, and then we were starting to hear about it, but nobody was really. And my brother had this conversation with me, so I'm the one that's walking around with the hand sanitizer wipes through the Pepsi Center, like wiping down our credit card machines and like eating raw garlic. Like a couple of us, like, who have our holistic attributes, but also like we need the sanitizer with the most alcohol. Like I was doing that for Oprah and kind of like wondering if this very octogenarian heavy crowd, like what was going on. Like there was a question in my mind there, but nothing really seemed to happen. Like do you remember there was that time period where people were like, "This is a big deal," and then nothing happened until it started to happen. Like and it seemed like it was about 3 weeks of like, this is going to be a big deal, and nothing slowed down, nothing, and you weren't hearing about like cases or anything like that. And does
I
that
don't.
resonate? Does that timeline resonate with you at all? It's also
Not really. I feel like there was never, I feel like it went from it not being a big deal to it being a big deal overnight. I don't remember there being this 3 week lag. But as you said in the beginning of this, time is weird. We don't need to rehash the details. I think that what's interesting is, you know, it's cool, kind of that Post Malone is your last
yeah,
concert. At least you had the opportunity. March what 12th? You said something like that.
yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay, so Denver, as we talked about earlier, shut down like March 17th, 18th. It was right after St. Patty's Day, so a week after that.
Okay.
When did like your life get really impacted, and when were you like, I guess I'm assuming,
Yeah.
did you ever start taking it seriously? What has your position been on the pandemic? And it's interesting because when I first started doing this, that was never the question. It was assumed this is the pandemic, but here we are. And as we know, there are plenty of Americans that wouldn't say that it's serious, even to this day. So I won't assume anything, Curtis. Tell
Yeah.
me how it how has it impacted you and what's your stance on this whole thing?
Well, I think it like the day that I was forced to really take it seriously was Post Malone because that day was so surreal. There was a bunch of us knowing that this thing was coming, knowing that it was here, and everyone that was on the tour side of that was fielding phone calls. All the rest of our dates are canceled. Like, and it was all happening that day. That so and so's other tour is canceled. And then we start getting information. The next show we have canceled, 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 canceled. And so when we got there in the morning, there was X amount of shows in Denver lined up. And everybody else's tours were still going on. By the end of that day, there was no shows left. Like there was a couple that thought that they were still going to go. They ended up getting canceled within like the next 48 hours. But and everybody on most tours nationwide, jobs gone. And that happened within like 11-hour shift. So that was absolutely crazy. Just to be a fly on the wall for that, and also dealing with trying to keep our crews safe from what we knew at the time, which was very much a wash your hands, don't touch your face kind of rhetoric, and seeing the disparity between certain like age groups on how serious they were taking this made me start taking it a lot more seriously. Um, and then so after that night, you get off when you're working merch at like 2 in the morning. It's like, you know, or later. And so I get home, and a buddy of mine was staying with me because he was doing a show. He was doing a show for the Boulder Theater Company, local, and they were doing their new playwrights series. So it's a bunch of playwrights from around the country that come in and are working on a new play. And so he was staying with me while they were doing that. And the next, like, I went to bed. The next morning, we sit down, my buddy Brian, and we sit at our computers. And then that theater festival closed. And we just sit at our computers. And I was doing a play at the time, canceled. Um, we sit at our computers for 6 hours, just sitting there, just, okay, that's canceled. That's canceled. So and so lost all of their jobs. So and so. And within that day, everyone I knew in the theater community had lost all of their work. And
Oh my God, I just got full body chills. Like, talk about feeling gutted.
yeah,
I don't know. I'm assuming here. Like, how else what do you remember? Like, if you could bring us to that feeling of that moment, not that you have to relive it, but like, what do you do in that moment? What do you think? What are the conversations?
it was it was just surreal. Um, in that, like, I think after both of us got walking papers from two different shows within an hour of each other, and we're sitting across a table from each other.
I'm sorry, a walking paper?
Oh yeah, that's when you're let go of something.
Okay,
Uh,
I figured. I'm like, that's got to be like theater
yeah,
industry talk.
yeah. Like we weren't fired or anything like that. Like the shows were canceled. There was nothing anyone could do, and but we both had that experience within an hour to 45 minutes of each other. we saw the rest of it coming, because like once the Denver Center closed, was like, we're done. We're like, everybody's done,
Okay.
and so it was like one of those moments where your jaw is just always kind of hanging open, and you just like, what the fuck, what the fuck, and it just escalates in how you emphasize fuck and what, you know?
Totally. I mean, you're an actor. Can you do a little, give us the thing. Come on.
No, I just did.
Okay. Okay.
What?
I won't put you on the spot that hard, but
Yeah.
no, you did a little bit, but I think that, I think the world felt that way, to
Hmm.
be honest. And I think as an outsider looking at these industries that you would think were uncrackable, I mean, the theater, Shakespeare, I mean, it's been around forever. That's just like what people do and did. It's deeply ingrained in humanity, I feel
Yeah.
like. Going to the theater,
Yeah.
performing, literally performing for people, the arts. Um,
But it is also deeply ingrained in the theater tradition of closing during plagues. Um,
okay, wait, whoa. Talk
um,
to me about that.
well, Shakespeare's Globe, during the bubonic plague in England, was shuttered, and famously, like the legend has it that he wrote King Lear during the plague. But yeah, there's also a history of theaters getting shuttered, and also theaters trying to reopen during plagues and moving
Well,
to,
and stuff. I mean,
yeah.
it's funny because I mean, it's not funny, but when I think of people pulling themselves out of tough times, theater, performance, art is like how I think in historically, like people have done it, because I think of the Holocaust and the camps, and you see all the drawings and you hear about the plays that were put on during those times and in the communities. And so that's where my mind goes. So that's why I was like, oh, whoa, like there's this whole history I hadn't thought of. And so thanks for pointing that out. Um, I want to know, I'm like, okay, which direction do I go in first? The personal side of the industry? I want to go personal side. So
Yeah.
when you're sitting there in March and you realize, well, shit, there goes my passion, right? That my career, I mean, you were doing the merch for purely income, I imagine, and maybe a benefit of a free show or two or four.
Yeah, yeah, and like my buddy who I've known since I was 9 runs the company, so
Okay.
it's just,
So worked out. You could probably
yeah.
pick the hours you wanted, all that
Oh,
good stuff.
absolutely.
But the acting, like that's where you really wanted your career to thrive, and it did, and whatever. I mean, that's just, it wasn't all of a sudden March, whoa, this isn't happening. What did you decide to do? What was the plan? Is there, what are you doing now? I mean, do you do reinvent the wheel within acting or within yourself or both? Talk to me about all of that.
Um, it was really interesting. Like, one that happened, and and at the end of that day, most of us had lost any shows we had lined up or anything like that. And then my friend Brian went back home because he no longer had a job here in Boulder, and like we hugged it out. And one of the last, like I think I've had 3 hugs since then, or that's one of 3 hugs since March. So that sticks in my mind as like, oh, that's one of the last times I touched somebody. But so
Oh my God. I'm like, I just want to go
Yeah. Okay.
right into that, but I am not.
Do you want to hold on to that? Okay. So we were kind of in limbo for a second, and as luck would have it, my mom was trying to learn how. My mom teaches art classes. You know, like she's a fine artist, and
Of course, she works in the arts too.
yeah,
Okay, beautiful. There's a painting behind Curtis.
yeah.
Let's
There's a painting
see.
behind me. And
Mother's painting.
and so she was wanting to learn Zoom to transition her classes. So this is a, this is probably a little bit after St. Patrick's Day, probably closer to April, um, where people are starting to realize this isn't going away. So she wanted to learn how to do this, so she recruited myself and a couple of her friends just to get on Zoom so she could try to teach a class and we can troubleshoot how to exist in this format as that we're in right now. And as luck would have it, like one of my mom's friends, Alice, her son, who is one of my best friends from childhood, was in like who also like came on to help Brian. And he was also an actor. We started acting when we were 9 together, and he's one of the only people that's continued doing it. And he's based in DC, and I haven't seen him since his wedding, like 8 years ago. And so I was like, "Oh, Brian, you're here. Let's." And so we spent most of the time trying to teach my mom Zoom, just like private messaging. And we're just like, let's just get our own Zoom and like chat. And so we got on a Zoom and just started shooting the shit. And he was like, you know what I really want to do, since we're like in the Zoom format all the time and there's no theaters, like I kind of think that I might want to produce a play festival, like a new play festival that's like specific for this. And I was like, fuck yes, I'm down. Fuck yes, I am so down. Um, and as luck would have it, my ex-girlfriend Elena, she was doing a Zoom, like she got linked up with these people that were already starting to do Zoom. Like they got on it so quick. They're called Theatrical Response Team. And they started doing Zoom plays out of the get. They're based in Denver, Dan and Bradley. And they started like, and so she got hooked up with them. And they were like, we want to do a Shakespeare next. And she was like, as my ex-boyfriend actually has this really abridged version of King Lear. It comes in a box. I'll put you in touch with him. So those guys had just gotten in touch with me. And then I'm reconnected with Brian. And he was like, let's do a play festival. I was like, yeah. And also like these dudes that I have no idea who they are want to do King Lear on Zoom. Do you want to do that too? He was like, yeah. And that started like this little Zoom theater experience for us. I don't know a better way to put it than. So we ended up doing King Lear, but it was King Lear that came in like a box, like for a dinner. It's like almost like murder mystery Shakespeare. It comes in a box. It has props. It's very like abridged. It gives you cards of how to tell you how to play your part. It like totally goofy. And I was planning on doing it as a fundraiser, like live before this all happened. I was like, this would be hilarious to do live. Um, and so we ended up doing that, and we got. I was just like, I can ask my friends from anywhere. Like Brian's in Maryland. Like I got my friend Darby from LA, and then some local people, and Brian brought in some people from the East Coast. And we were like, oh shit, we can do this. Like they're never going to be any good because theater on Zoom is atrocious, but like, and it truly is, but it's so much fun. And so we took that, we did the King Lear, and then we decided to do this play festival, and we got like 15 writers to write like original plays just for Zoom. So we had cast for all of those plays, and that it was a shitload of work. None of us had ever really written that many like emails before, and like we got them cast, we got them directors for all of them, and we put them up and put them up live, and just did this.
Okay, this is so cool.
I feel like
I started by saying, "What do you do? Reinvent?" Da, 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 da. And it's like, yeah, but no. Like same, but different.
Yeah.
God, humans are cool. And I'm so happy that to have this conversation because all day today I'm like, God, humans just why?
Well,
But there is this side. I mean, in total darkness is when light shines the brightest, right? Like when we have a back against the walls, when we get the most creative because we have to figure it out. It's like, why wouldn't we do the technology existed, but people weren't doing this the same way? I think that is so freaking cool. So you have been playing around with this whole other avenue of acting with it. I think that's so cool. And you have this whole new like Zoom theater community of people all across the country. I mean, that's amazing. Have you made money from it? Are you charging? Like, how does this all work? And how are you able to sustain your life?
um thank goodness for unemployment. Yeah, no, we haven't been charging, um because like, one, if we charged money, like everybody does it, donates their time to like when we were doing these projects, everybody donates their time. We all, and we would decide on a charity or a couple to just pitch at the beginning of the show. And like, so we weren't necessarily partnered with them, but like a lot of times like we would pitch. There's a charitable organization here in Denver called the Denver Actors Fund, which covers actors or theater professionals medical expenses if they were to get injured or something like that. Just in general, if you have medical expenses and you're in the theater community, you can just write them and they'll give you money to cover those expenses. They're wonderful. So we would just like pitch them, or if somebody on the East Coast had something, we'd be like, okay, we'll pitch both the things. But yeah, no, we never. Like, I think monetizing that is it's tricky. Like, one, it's hard in this format to get a product really worth monetizing.
I
Um,
want to say I asked the question not because I think that you could or should or needed to. I simply was curious because the how do you survive if you're not working? If all those shows got canceled, if you're not making money, and by the way, you said thank God for unemployment. Yeah, but
yeah,
unemployment didn't really exist for freelancers before. Didn't really. It didn't, period,
yeah.
exist before the pandemic. So thank God for that. It's also done, although now there's something a little bit more, or maybe it's not done. I don't know, but
Yeah, for me, I was lucky that the concert merchandise was a job. Like they took taxes and stuff like that.
oh, right. I forgot you had that.
So like that
Heck
is
yeah.
that's what parlayed mostly into unemployment, and like that was just like luck of the draw on my part. The friends of mine that you know had have had a really tough time of it when they have like $600 from this theater company over here and a couple $1,000 over, like translating that into unemployment that actually keeps people afloat has proven to be a nightmare. I just lucked out that I had this other thing that I put enough hours into that it has been sustainable on the other end. But
It's it's a really shitty side of this whole thing. It really is. And it's like going back to the beginning, we were talking about living at your mom's. Like, thank God you have that opportunity. You have a
uh,
roof over your head, because it is not cheap to live in this country. Period. End of subject. There's, healthcare workers that have been a problem this year. All of a sudden people find out that they have an OnlyFans site, for example, because they need it to support themselves. So that, by the way, they can even fund their own health insurance. But that's a problem that they're on OnlyFans. No, the problem is that they need to have two jobs to be able to live in this country,
yeah, the
in my
problem
opinion. So,
the
like,
problem is, and also we don't know if that's a need or a want. Like, there's no judgment on only, like, we're always like
sure,
prescribing.
but when it's self-disclosed as to
Yeah,
why,
yeah,
right?
that's atrocious.
But that's
It's
a reality. So then it's like, okay, you add this other. So okay, you have these people that, and maybe, okay. So you're on unemployment. Are you still on unemployment, by the way?
Yeah, I got an extension. Um, they they gave me some sort of extension, so like I'm on my second round at the moment.
Interesting. Um, so that's awesome. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, I was confused about it, but they emailed me and told me I was eligible, and I was like, okay, that really helps. Thanks. Um,
This thing is so weird. So
it's
I
so
would assume that that's on a state level. I imagine that's a
yeah,
Colorado thing. Okay.
yeah, it's cool.
So do you have any idea how long that's going to last for?
It's just like a lump sum, and like once it's gone, and then you have to reapply and try again. Um, it's like I think I'm in a like
Like,
an
what's your
interesting.
run? Do you need to get a job? I guess is where I'm going with this. Do you have any
Um,
inclination that maybe
I
something, or do you think that the theater's going to reopen with these vaccines? I mean, what's the conversation?
I I think I will probably have to get a job. I've been avoiding it. Like one because I have pre-existing conditions, and so like that's
Does this
another
go to the hug thing? Why
like
does this go back to as to why your precautions maybe have been more strict than others? I don't know.
I think so. I think also that like I landed with with my mother who's over 60.
Okay.
And also, I think the main thing about that is that I'm a stubborn asshole. Is like I decided when my brother texted me and was like, "You have to take this more seriously." I decided that I was going to take it more seriously, and I haven't really let up on that. But like that's one thing that definitely comes to mind is like, okay, so I have autoimmune stuff. I don't know how COVID interfaces with it or not, but it's something to keep in the back of my head. And also, like, especially if I was going to go get a job at a supermarket or something like that. And bless those people at the supermarket. They're true heroes. That do not get enough recognition at all. But
Or at the gas station, or like
right,
any of these places where going in every day and dealing with people.
yeah, dealing with people, dealing with the uncertainty of it all. I can't have enough respect or like I think that they should never buy a drink again in their lives.
It
Situation.
should at least get free healthcare.
At the very least. Don't even get me started on that.
So, okay, you clearly have a lot to consider when thinking about the next step or move. between your mom, pre-existing conditions, what would you even do for a job? What is so yeah, let's fast forward. Actually, I don't want to fast forward yet.
Yeah.
So you've basically been in quarantine then, I would presume, since the middle of March when you decided I'm taking it seriously. I'm at my mom's.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what did the rest of 2020 look like for you? Because I took it seriously too, and this summer the weather was not, I was outside and I was like, okay, I'm outside. That feels good to me. I had like a very specific group of people. That was it. But I felt like I could breathe again. Sounds like, and now I'm back in.
Yeah.
It's basically been since October that I've been back in, but
Mhm.
sounds like you've been in this whole time.
Yeah. Um, I like it, loosely, like, um, I've I guess what I did like during the summer is like I would I would go to protests, and that's what I would like. I would go to the protests and I would be in that, but I like those were situations where I could be relatively distant from people, and also I felt like that was like more important than myself at that moment in time, and still is actually, like, but like that was more important than me. But besides that, like I haven't seen anyone. I've had a couple like outside chats. Like played bocce ball with some friends, but that was like that was the extent of it. And the rest of that like community has been through here, which is
Okay. So you said some interesting things like the protests, the Black Lives Matter movement this summer.
yeah,
It's actually what brought me out of my house. Um, I think it brought a lot of people out,
mhm,
actually. And I think that going to the protests and then kind of not that everyone was okay, but didn't blow up in the way that people were saying that it was going to, numbers wise, as far as the
yeah,
pandemic went after the protests. I think that's part of it. Like why people kind of loosened up this summer. I don't know. I think it's part of why I did. But yeah, the protests. Interesting that you say you felt like you could be distant there. I certainly didn't. Um, but I
uh,
did feel like the majority of people were wearing masks and
yeah.
being precautious.
Yeah, I guess it did. Like when I first went down, I was still very much like in my 6 foot bubble, and like I felt like if I was on the fringes, I could just do my own thing and
I got you.
be there as a body,
Support. Sure,
you
sure,
know,
sure.
like as a body, um, and as it proceeded throughout the summer, like I started to like personally, I stopped giving as many shits about like that like element, and it's like, okay, what does this like? What do you need me to do here in this? Like what is and like also I think like a lot of times like those times are good for like reflection on oneself is like, okay, what am I doing here, like what is my purpose at a Black Lives Matter protest, like as like what do I need to look like, what is
Oh
my
my God, that could open
yeah, yeah, and like we
so
don't need
many
to go
other
there.
can of worms. My
Yeah,
goodness. Going back there. Okay, yeah. So there's 1,000 reasons why people were there, why people were saying they were there. I certainly had my fair share of friends that were taking one too many Instagram pictures for my liking, but that's
mhm,
besides the point. Let's not go down that road. Going back to the pandemic, I mean, I think that there were a couple sides of history we could have been on, right? And I think it says something about who you are that you chose to go within all of that. So awesome. Now you said you played bocce ball recently with a group of friends and you've had about 4 hugs. You've had like bits and pieces of social interaction. This is really going to be my last question. I like super personal to you. And then going to ask you a couple questions that I ask everyone, Curtis. So, and I'm saying that because feel free to share as much as you want here. But I mean, I was saying in the beginning, it takes 21 days to form a habit, 90 days to make it habitual. Yoga for me is like it's a daily thing, and that's because I've been doing it for so long, but it took a while to get there to make that lasting change. I mean, we're 9, 10 months into this. There are lasting changes at this point about us as people.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, like, what did it feel like to be in a social situation where you were playing bocce ball? Do you feel different as a person? Do you already feel or see long-term impacts? How are you doing? And how has it been just being by yourself without that and just having your Zoom communities? If you could really share there.
It's like the bocce ball was nice. I also was nervous, like because I think that there's, and I think that that nervousness is good. I think that at this stage, normalizing certain things, like I don't believe that we're there yet. Where it's like, okay, you can normalize continued social interaction just based off of the numbers. Like it doesn't, like it, like I know that everybody's doing the best. Not everybody's doing the best, but like most people are doing the best to keep everyone around them safe. But
Well, we at least want to tell ourselves that.
yeah, but LA doesn't have hospital beds, and so like it felt nice, and I'm sure that it was fine, and I'm like we were all very like safe, but like there's something like about that to me where it's like if I know myself, and if I normalize that, then I'll normalize, like I can normalize going and meeting up in bars. I can normalize like whatever kind of behavior, so I'm not allowing myself to do that, if that makes sense.
So
um
kind of an all or nothing, like if you give a mouse a cookie type situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And because something about that, like I'm lonely, like I'm absolutely lonely, and I am like I'm sad and mad all the time. Like I'm mad all the time. I'm mad at people that are posting their Instagram selfies about like, their maskless like mojitos and shit. Like, I get mad about that, and then I'm like, okay, I don't know the context. I don't know the context of that Instagram photo. I wish that people would stop posting Instagram photos of them having a good time, even if it's fake, because it promotes other people to want to mimic said experience, and we're not in a position, just based off of math and science, that we can, like I don't like it's not personally, it's not a great thing in my mind to do at the moment. But yeah, I'm like, but that being said, it's like god damn, it's lonely out here. you know and I think that we're all feeling it in certain degrees. And I was one time, like years ago, I was really sick, and I was in and out of the hospital, and I was like getting like a blood transfusion every other week or something like that. It was like it was gnarly, and people would always roll up to me and like start to talk to me about their day, and they would be like, "Hey, blah blah blah," like, "Oh man, like this and this," but oh, it's nothing like what you're going through. They would preface it with, "It's nothing like what you're going through," because they like knew. And I was like, how do you know? I think suffering is relative. It's relative to the human. And some person may get a parking ticket, and that could crush them because it's talking about their belief in like themselves and their expectations about who they are as a human being. And then the other person could be, like in my case, like getting blood transfusions. And like neither one of those sufferings is like should be like thrown out the window, should be like it, like you shouldn't like compare the two. It's like, oh, that is worse than that because of like X, Y, and Z qualifiers. It's like suffering is relative. And like the pain that an individual is feeling is relative. So like we're all in this together, but some people this is really, really hard for, and some people it's just hard in a different way. And I think that that is really complicated to keep in mind, like because we so want to relate our experiences to other people. But I think that it's something I'm trying to do.
Or we want to make it belittle our, not belittle, but like downplay our own experience, I think. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I shouldn't be feeling this bad. We make ourselves feel bad for feeling bad, or whatever, say, or make ourselves feel better. Actually, I'm okay. They have it worse. Like whatever it is, there's this comparison. Somebody said this, some TED talk so beautifully, like there's no harder, there's just hard. Hard.
Full stop.
And I think it's true. And my life experience means that different things are going to be hard for me than they would for you. And by the way, like, yeah, that's an intense thing that you went through. No matter which way I think you shake a stick at it, here you are to tell your tale. Maybe it made you be the person that you are today and you're grateful for. I don't know. Who am I to say that to you? I think that, yeah, it's a really beautiful, beautiful reminder of removing yourself from assuming how somebody might be doing or feeling throughout this pandemic in any of the scenarios.
Yeah. It just is. Yeah, it's a situation that like none of us have ever been in before, and we had no preparing except like two shitty movies. Like we had Outbreak and we had Contagion, and like they didn't really capture it.
Yeah, they don't count, I don't think. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, some people say like The Simpsons should have warned us.
Oh yeah, they warned us about a lot, but it's just like we're going through an experience that is like that we have no frame of reference for at all, and
Ever.
we're all going through it, and but we all have different advantages and disadvantages, like that are uniquely ours. And since it's the same experience, we're like, oh shit, we're all in this together. But like, also, you're dealing with this completely differently than I am, but it is similar, and there is
Same, but wildly different. Like
same but
there's
different, like
no way
the
around
ancient
it.
travel proverb. Um,
Okay, so I have to ask you a question. I'm like, I wasn't going to ask you any more questions specific to you, but God, there's like 1,000 more I could ask. And
sorry.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask this one. Don't be sorry. It's good. Um, I mean, what do you think is going to happen to? No, that's a silly question because of
No,
course
I know. I
theater is
want
going
to
to come
know.
back. No. I was going to say what's going to happen to the future of the theater. Of course, theater is going to come back.
Oh yeah.
That being said, to the capacity in which it was, like, when are you going to feel safe performing in front of thousands of people again? So the real question is, like, if you could predict the future, when does theater come back? When are you acting again in
I
real
think
life?
that like, I think that that's one of those things that is really hard to say, because I think it just depends on vaccine rollout, and like if you can get it to the point where you have X amount of your subscriber base as a theater company vaccinated, like I think Ticketmaster is talking about, like, showing proof of vaccination, like for concerts and stuff like that into 2022 and stuff like that. But like that was just rumor, hearsay, but I could see something like that happening, where um where like it might be one of those, like, you gotta prove you've had your shot to come in the doors kind of deal, and just like having kind of two different worlds in that world, where it's like,
Ugh,
but
so weird.
it is so weird. It is so weird. but people have been trying to do live theater. Like they've been doing it. I think it's just dumb to do. Like they've been trying to do it, and some theater companies are doing it, and that's stupid. But
So it is what it is. It is what it is. To keep my own opinions out of it.
Yeah, but I will gladly say that that's stupid. And
listen, I'm not going, so
yeah. But like I think what like we're looking at is fall of this year or spring of next.
fall or spring. So we're skipping
Fall of,
winter.
yeah, like people might do Christmas Carol, but like
Nutcracker.
yeah, like maybe those are very expensive shows to do, and so if you're going to be operating a theater at like 25% capacity, if it follows the restaurant model, like it might not. I'm not sure if that's financially viable for a theater company to do.
I guess we're gonna cross these bridges when we get there. It's just so
Yeah.
wild to think about. But okay, maybe at the earliest fall, kind of normalcy.
Yeah.
Okay. My hunch is that like if that applies to theater, that means that fall is probably when at earliest things will be feeling you can go out of your house and get a hug maybe from some people.
Yeah, but like possibly like they're saying that that like they might have like a full vaccine rollout by late summer, so fall is.
We'll see. They also said 20 million people by January, and that didn't happen. So we'll see what happens.
Didn't happen. I think this is the whole thing is like we have to continue to roll with the punches, even though like we're getting closer. It does like it's still like there's still punches to come.
Oh yeah, we're deep in it. We're deep in it. Yeah, so on that note, God, I feel like I can't even ask this question with a straight face anymore because it's like fucking duh, the answer.
Okay, cool.
But it was, and I've asked this to people all over the world. When we look back on this in the fall, because we will be looking back on all of this one day. Mm-hmm. Who are we all going to look at as the country that handled this the best? Who is the golden child? That's not the duh question. So there you go. Who handled it the best? And then who's the golden fuck up?
Oh, who's the golden
fuck failed?
Up? Well,
I'm talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, no, I think that like as far as news goes and who looks the best is New Zealand, right? And I think that they've done a really wonderful job. Australia's done a pretty good job as well. But also there's been a lot of countries that I don't I'm hearing stories Thailand's been doing a great job. And there's a lot of stories that aren't getting a lot of countries that aren't getting as much press about how well they're doing it. And I'm just hearing from people that are there, but it seems like a lot of countries are doing a pretty good job, and I think a lot of that is because they have to. Like in New Zealand's an island, it's a big Australia.
They also have leadership in direction.
That's true. It's
true. They also have leadership in direction. I mean, I think that we could agree. I think New Zealand at one point they literally had 0 cases, and for a while, which still might be the case. But you're right.
They had a little thing. They had a little tiff, but they react to 11 cases the way that we react to 100,000. They're just no, shut it down and stuff like that.
And they can live normally.
Yeah, they do. Which is bizarre to see pictures from there.
It's so weird. It feels like alternate reality. It is alternate realities.
Well, I
So
see the same thing on Instagram from Orange County. So, like the same
which is
mask lift.
mind-boggling
Yeah.
considering the situation there. I mean, they're literally what did they call it? Like not crisis care, but I mean, they're having to decide who lives and who dies. Literally. That's what's happening. So,
It's true.
okay.
It's absolutely true.
Um,
Okay. The
all
other
right.
question
So, last question, and I'm sorry, but we got to wrap it up
is
here.
absolutely.
Um, we've talked about some good things, but this really is my favorite question, because, you know, that it's just intense. There's no way to talk about all this stuff without it being kind of heavy and intense. So I always love to end on this, and I did mention it before, but there is good that has come out of this. Um, Creativity, like I said, the light comes out of the dark. So I would love to hear from you. What good have you already seen that's come out of this from maybe your family, your friends, local here in Colorado, in the US, in the world, the planet? What good have you seen, and what good do you think is going to come from this?
Whoa. Um, there's a lot, because like you said, like everything has that duality of purpose. And somebody once told me that you people grow from either joy or suffering, but they grow more from suffering. And I'm not sure if I tend to agree with it on some days, and I don't necessarily agree with that on others. But
On the days when you're growing and
yeah,
reflecting, it's awesome. On
yeah,
the days when you're suffering, fuck that.
yeah. And
I do think it's
so
true, though.
yeah, no, I think I do too. And I think that I think that people I think I hear from my friends who have kids that this is like this is a moment where they've gotten this quality time that they would have never had otherwise, and so that's kind of beautiful. I think that um I think that we had a deeper conversation about civil rights and racism in this country than we would have normally had otherwise. I think that if I think that the combination of Trump's America and the pandemic, like if we weren't able to sweep it under the rug as easily as we normally do,
Still aren't able to.
still aren't able to as well.
Even though we're
But
trying, it's unbelievable.
yeah,
But anyway, we're sticking to the good stuff.
yeah, but also I know more people that have gotten involved, have educated themselves, have shown up to protests who had never, and I think that, and who gives so many shits about it, but I think that they might not have, some of these people might not have necessarily shown up, might not be taking those extra steps if it weren't for the circumstances in the world right now. Um, and unfortunately, that it might be true, it might not be true, but I
I hear
think that
you. I hear you. I mean, hey, even if it took something like you said, you're angry all the time, right? So maybe people got more angry than
mhm,
they would have otherwise. So, which I think is totally true. More impassioned, more whatever, had more time. Yeah, I think you're right. So we have this
yeah,
biggest, largest civil rights movement in history, which is still going on right now, which is sad and also really beautiful at the same time.
yeah. I think also the fact that people were sitting in their homes and weren't going out, and were actually seeing with their own eyeballs the atrocities that, you know, like when you're on the go and you're like, oh, that happened, blah, 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 blah. Like, you know, and like kind of driving and texting and doing the thing, you know, and like you're skimming through the thing. And when you're stuck sitting there and it's just like there, and it's
You
like,
have to think
okay,
about it. You
I'm
just
going to have to deal with this. And then I'm also seeing in real time the response.
totally, totally.
And so like that might be like, I think that is possibly like, if that's true, benefit. I besides that, like I think Trump would have had a better chance of winning without the pandemic, um which is disgusting, but like, and
Hey, who knows? But I certainly don't think it helped his scenario, and thank
no,
God.
no. And
I
at the
do.
end, yeah, sorry,
No, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, at the end of the day, like, you know, like there are these beautiful moments, and and like there is this beautiful, like there are communities that would have never been communities except like for people like having to Zoom and getting into this, like people. I have I have this lovely sticker on my water bottle from a gentleman by the name of Bill Dennison. I've never met him in real life. Like, you know, I met him like through theater on the Zoom. And
Our yoga community, hello.
oh yeah. And like and which has been amazing. And um like I see like Sam taking teaching, like his teaching to a new level, like through this, which is really interesting. In an acting class as well, back in LA, and I would never have been able to do that.
We
Like,
have
you know, I'm back
time
in
to
my old
invest.
acting studio. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like that's amazing. And we've still, and I think that it's great to hold on to that and also hold on simultaneously to the utter horror that is that there's a lot of other people um, that are dying daily, that we that it's become a number too big to comprehend, and so I don't think we hold these people like now. It's just a group, like it's like a mass grave in our mind of
It's
all of the,
incomprehensible. I can't
yeah.
really, the number is too big at this point.
And I think that we have to try though to, like,
I,
one, look at the beautiful things and also try to hold that candle.
it's
And
really like
if it can,
we are going through collective trauma and it's continuous. Like it's
yeah.
so intense. So that's what's happening. And it's like, yes, all of that's there. But positive, I'm just trying to sprinkle it in. But it
Right.
is there. And you know what? Like there, this woman, this news report, I mean, she was, you just saw like the gravity of it. She couldn't hold herself together in the news report crying, and she shouldn't have had to. I mean, I get it. And it's like, you can't watch that without feeling a pit in your stomach. And like, it is just, it's, yeah, it's horrible. There are no words. And so I cannot believe I didn't ask you this question. And I'm upset that we have to end this way. So maybe I'll ask you something else, but I cannot believe I didn't ask you this. I have to.
Oh,
As of today, January 21st, January 12th,
yeah,
2021.
not to the 21st yet.
God, it's ugh.
Yeah.
As of January 12th, 2021, do you know anyone that's been diagnosed positive with COVID-19?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you say it like that now. Back in April, March, May, when I was doing this, no, it was not an oh yeah.
Yeah. I, you know,
Okay,
I would
now I feel like unfortunately the question should be, do you know anyone that's died?
not personally, like I like, it's like one person removed. Like a friend, my friends of mine's like relatives have passed.
Yeah.
And but nobody that I've met personally,
Yeah.
that I've, at least that not that I know of.
Yeah. I hope it
Um,
stays that way.
I do too. I do too. How about you?
Um, I'm in the same boat,
Yeah,
actually. I'm in the same boat, and I hope it stays that way.
yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna end on a different question.
I don't.
Is there
Okay.
anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share as it relates to your experience living through this pandemic, being Curtis?
Oh shoot, that's a heavy one because now I have to like
It doesn't have
think
to
of
be anything. Just if
build
there's
your own adventure. Um,
anything you want to share, anything you think it's important for people to know from your own experience.
well, like I no, like I want to thank you for this. Like this has been really fun, and I think it's less about like my own experience, but like all of the like check out all of the cool things that like people are putting really interesting and really unique things into the world right now, and I think that that's like this podcast, from what I've listened so far is great, and people are doing that, like from like doing an entire podcast, which is like an undertaking, to like, and I don't want to diminish needlepoint, but like, people are also like doing some really cool needlepoint shit, and like who in your circle is like taking
I did a puzzle for the first time.
damn right you did.
I mean, it's
Damn
not
right.
actually, it's only like 90% complete, but people are doing really cool stuff. The Zoom
Yeah.
theater, the like Zoom, oh my God, where's my brain? The
Yeah, you
festival.
said it was, yeah, Zoom theater. Yeah.
But the whole festival you were talking, I mean, that's cool stuff. My friends
Yeah.
did like this kind of like Burning Man inspired, like multi-room theme dress up. I mean, people are doing some cool shit. You're not
Yeah.
wrong.
People are losing their goddamn minds, and that's when creativity is just on fire. And like, no, but people are really, and also people are learning how to put themselves out into the world in a different way than they're normally comfortable with. Sometimes because they're forced to do it, and sometimes it's like, well, sitting here with myself and like, let me try out something new. And I think that that's awesome. And the more time, and I think that more people have started, that I know personally, have started like interesting creative endeavors that they might not have started beforehand. And who in your circle has done that, and like check out their stuff, check out your neighbors. Is your neighbor like organizing rocks in a weird way just because like, check it out.
I love to end. I love this because I think it's so true. There's not one person I think in my life that I know that hasn't done at least one either small or big, cool, weird, interesting project. So ask, find out what people are doing, and who knows what you might find too. I think that's fantastic. It has really been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank
Likewise.
you for giving a shit and being responsible for yourself and all the other people out there. Here's to us being back at the theater and hugging each other in the fall
Yeah, in the
and
yoga studio.
at the yoga studio. And thank you so much, Curtis.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the One World, Your Story podcast. If you enjoyed hearing this story and you wish to hear more, make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube, and of course, follow us on Instagram at OneWorldYourStory. From all of us here at the One World, Your Story podcast, we are sending you so much joy and love. Have a wonderful rest of your day.